welcome to this special show, COVID-19 Pandemic, coming to you live from our studio in Freeport, Grand Bahama. I'm Shoshina Rule-Parkinson. As always, we thank you so much for tuning in. Well, a 29-year-old female resident of New Providence is the newest positive COVID-19 case recorded by health officials. During a press conference yesterday in the Capitol, Minister of Health, the Honorable Dr. Dwayne Sands, said the patient remains in home isolation and pushes the total count to 81. Minister Sands also confirming that 1,284 individuals have been tested for COVID-19 and that increased testing helps health officials better understand the pandemic. Now, Bimini is considered a hotspot for COVID-19 with 8 cases on record, the highest number outside New Providence. Health teams are on the ground there in Bimini with plans to execute testing and to provide information to the Bimini community. Well, in the meantime, the Ministry of Health releasing a new dashboard yesterday. The dashboard, which includes the country's statistics as it relates to COVID-19, now has a new and improved look with more information. But there is a piece of information that some consider vital is missing. At least one doctor on Grand Bahama says the quarantine numbers must be reinstated, noting that it is imperative in the country's fight against COVID-19. Italia Hall has more.
We are modifying the dashboard to respond to requests made by the public for a better overall picture of how COVID-19 affects the Bahamas.
The new dashboard includes the number of active COVID-19 cases, hospitalized cases, the number of COVID-19 cases on each island, and the number of tests completed in the country. But the number of persons in quarantine category was eliminated. Well, Dr. Leviticus Roll says he believes that bit of information is critical, and he is concerned. He says citizens may become complacent.
There's still so much about this virus that we don't know, that nobody knows, because it's fairly new to us. For example, we don't know what happens 3 months, 6 months, 9 months after an initial attack on the virus. And so I think we still need to be extra cautious because we don't yet have an effective vaccine nor effective treatment. And we do know that the numbers are still going up.
Now, the number of confirmed cases on Grand Bahama still stands at 7, but Roll says he sees a number of patients on a daily basis who presents suspicious symptoms.
You know, fever and cough, and a lot of persons are then referred to the hotline so that they can be examined, perhaps tested.
He says now is not the time for anyone to drop their guard, as history teaches a very important lesson about past pandemics. He says history shows that there is usually a second wave.
It's during that first wave, people are hypervigilant. It's during that second wave that they relax, and the virus is able to spread even more quickly. So I am concerned, as most healthcare workers are, that we may see a second wave that may be worse than the first. And what would prevent that is if we just continue to practice our social distancing and remain vigilant.
Italia Hall, ZNS Network News.
Well, New York is the epicenter of COVID-19 in the United States, and there are many Bahamians in the medical profession there who are fighting to save the lives of thousands of affected patients. Today, we hear from a Grand Bahamian registered nurse who shares what it is to be in this medical war, as she encourages Bahamians to take heed to all warnings. Bahamian wife and mother of 2, Ashley Woodside, is a registered nurse at Mount Sinai, Maine in New York, the state in the United States that has the highest amount of cases in the country. The hospital is busy, and many have considered the state as a medical war zone. Woodside has worked in the operating room for the past 3 years, but she says with the COVID-19 pandemic, nurses from all departments have been deployed to assist in the coronavirus battle. She admits that the nurses are overwhelmed.
They take in us from everywhere just to get help. So once you get to the floor, it's you have to hit the ground running. It's patient after patient and medication. Everyone's on oxygen. If they're not on regular oxygen, they're on high flow oxygen or a ventilator. So it's very overwhelming, but like I said before, it's just one of those situations where they take you and you just have to jump in and help as much as possible.
And the job is not an easy one. She shares the pain of watching affected COVID-19 patients endure the virus.
A lot of them can't breathe on their own. The ones that are on ventilators, their respiratory therapy has to come in and suction them and give them their medication. The ones that are able to breathe on their own, not on ventilators, which is, the high flow nasal cannula oxygen, it's very difficult for them to even eat. We have to help them with eating, walking, even turning and positioning. Just to put it into perspective, we have a team of nurses that come around just to turn the patients every few hours because they're not able to reposition themselves.
But she says the good news is they are now starting to see more patients recover.
We've been having a lot of discharges. Mind you, the discharges, the patients are still positive. They're not going home just, completely cured, but they're stable enough to go home. I'd say in a day we'd have about 5 discharges. Mm-hmm. But as soon as that as soon as that discharge patient is gone, there's an emergency room full of positive patients, so the bed is filled up right away. But in reference to like a few weeks ago, there weren't any discharges.
But her heart is still at home in the Bahamas with her family.
I am, because I know that the Bahamas is such a small country and we don't have enough resources and equipment. Like I said, my number one concern is my family. I just, I drill into them every day, make sure that they're wearing their PPE, listen to the lockdown that the Prime Minister put in place. And I say, my motto is mask up, gloves up, prayed up, just prayers.
Right.
That's all you could do.
She encourages Bahamians to take this virus seriously.
As an essential worker on the front lines, recently having to go out into the field and leave my home and my family. I just recently had a baby, so I have a newborn at home, and I also have my 85-year-old grandmother in the house. And, you might feel healthy and you might feel as though you're not going to get it, or you might feel as though, you're taking all the necessary precautions, but it's for the people that you come back home to that aren't able to fight off the disease.
Well, this COVID-19 pandemic has caused great damage to the economies around the world. But this crisis has also resulted in the development of new industries as well. Jamila Mizik features a young woman who is making it big in mask production.
Since the emergency orders have been in place, many Bahamians are now finding different ways to get by, and for some of them, that includes new business ventures. Owner of Shable Crafts, Chassery Bullard, has been in business since 2010 and customizes anything you can think of. But since the COVID-19 pandemic, Bullard says she has since gotten into customizing face masks.
My mask is slightly different. I wanted to customize them for businesses, put the logos on it like this one. And probably put a person's initials or something like that. I have a pocket in this to add in a filter. So you could choose filters. You could buy a carbon one. You could get the dust cloths and cut them up. There's a lot of things you could use as a filter that you would normally use in sensitive equipment.
Now, Bullard says most of her business comes from customizing items for funerals, but since the nationwide lockdown, she's been pushed to produce masks, company ID badges, and digital documents.
Companies, commercial companies, private companies that aren't able to have printing done, they want to use it because they're working from home. They wanted the documents digitized where they could fill it out. So I make fillable documents. A few people have come to me for printouts for their kids to have stuff to do at home. People who do arts and crafts, they have come for prints so they could be doing work in their studio while on the lockdown. So that's about it.
Interested persons can contact Bullard on Facebook and Instagram at Shable Crafts or call 359-4660 or 812-7722. Jamila Mizik, ZNS Network News.
Well, businesses in some sectors like hardware and houseware stores, auto parts stores, and plant nurseries have reopened, but on a limited basis. And no one knows just when the entire business center will be back to normal. Leslie Baptista, board secretary with the Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce, joins us now live. She's also the chair of the Tax and Economic Research Committee. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start off. I know that the Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce and your members have been committed to conducting this survey on local businesses post-Hurricane Dorian and at the beginning of this COVID-19 period. How is that survey coming along?
Well, we finished our initial, we're calling it our COVID survey, which will probably be a series of them. We expect a number of them. And we finished it about 10 days ago. We started in March, and it was looking back, a great time to do that because it gave us a chance to get a reading on Grand Bahama businesses from those surveyed 6 months after Dorian, and really at the cusp of the beginning of the COVID crisis, and it went into about 3 weeks of it. And what really showed, what was clear, not really unexpected, was that an economy that had already been battered by Hurricane Dorian and in its very early stages of recovery is once again being battered by a different kind of storm. The number of businesses that we surveyed, the majority were closed. We found that 69% of the businesses surveyed throughout this time period of about 3 weeks were closed as a result of COVID orders. It's a huge percentage. 31% obviously opened. The good news was that 82% of those that are closed during that period of survey expect to reopen. What we did start to see is a slight change in those that were unsure of whether or not they would reopen after the orders were lifted. And it started at a little bit lower percentage, and as the survey was carried out, we saw that percentage increase a few points. And it landed at 23% were either not going to reopen or uncertain if they were going to reopen.
Wow.
Still another large impact, and we had almost 3,000 employees represented by these surveys. So it, again, not unexpected, but telling a story that is unfolding for us here in Grand Bahama that shows that businesses are widely impacted. They are concerned about employment numbers. In fact, of those surveyed, 42% were expecting layoffs. Again, another huge number.
Wow.
Now, these were temporary layoffs, but nonetheless, it's a tremendous impact. So we're seeing emerge a picture that shows of a Grand Bahama, at the very, very early stages of trying to recover from Dorian being kicked back yet again.
And of course, we're already talking about an economy that was already ailing even prior to Hurricane Dorian.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so what is really critical at this point is that as we look to managing this crisis, and we know that one that's an undetermined amount of time, we just simply don't know how long this is going to impact us. So we have to do everything we can to get back open as safely and as quickly as we possibly can, so that business can start happening again. And we know that a lot of things have to happen to, before that can take place. But we have to keep focused on not just what's happening in this COVID crisis, but it has to be viewed at all times in the backdrop of where we were before that. We still have a number of challenges that are affecting the island as a whole. My apologies. We've got the airport, we've got the hospital, particularly poignant at this time, and obviously at any time.
How do you rebuild an economy without an airport and without a functioning hospital, though?
Very difficult. It's very difficult, and there's no question that this is a non-negotiable. Mm-hmm. We have to get the airport back up and running at a proper capacity. Obviously, it was open prior COVID, mm-hmm. But that was you know, it was a stopgap measure at that point. We have to we have to do whatever we can to make sure that in spite of this crisis that we are experiencing now, we do not allow it to derail the vital recovery of Grand Bahama, not just for Grand Bahama Island and all of our residents and businesses, but for the country as a whole. The dynamics are changing, our development is changing, and we have to make sure that we as an island, as well as a nation, don't lose focus on those key touch points, and that we keep the conversation going, we keep the feedback going, and we keep the ideas flowing, because we simply won't have a recovered Grand Bahama without a proper airport and a healthcare facility that can service the needs of our community. It's really, frankly, as simple as that.
We've heard it so many times. You fix Grand Bahama, you fix the rest of the country, yet we continue to suffer with these challenges. What are some of the pressing concerns of the business community?
Those ones that I've just mentioned remain at the top, and in every conversation we have, people will always revisit the main infrastructure challenges that we have post-Dorian. However, beyond that, right now the greatest challenges, and much of this came from the survey, remain access to low-cost capital. And thankfully there are some programs that are, if you don't mind, I'll talk about some of the concerns as well as some of the options that we know
Definitely.
and we're advocating for. Low-cost capital, in all of our surveys that we've done, and we started them after Matthew, that remains one of the top concerns. And thankfully there are a number of options. And I sit on a couple of evaluating boards, and one of the things that I'm really noticing, and we're trying to get the information out as much as possible, there is help out there. We need a broader take-up of those options, and from different industries. So typically you'll see some repeats of industry segments that are continually applying, but we need diversification, and certainly this COVID crisis has shown us as a country how desperately we need diversification in our economy. But we have the Small Business Development Center that the government had options that are there. From all accounts that we're hearing, responsive. A lot of people are getting needed assistance, so if that falls in your needs, that's an option. RISE is an initiative with Mercy Corps and Grand Bahama Port Authority, and they give grants up to $10,000. And there's also, just launched today actually, and I hope I'm not preempting their launch, but it needs to be talked about. The International Federation of Red Cross is launching another grant program to help small businesses. When you talk about the backbone of economy, entrepreneurs, small businesses are the backbone of the economy. You certainly need large industry, you certainly need corporate services, but there is nothing to drive an economy like the entrepreneurial spirit. And so we're trying to encourage those small and medium-sized businesses to take advantage of those options. We're seeing businesses that typically would not, they would be able to go through their local banks and not necessarily need to go through special programs. That's changing in the COVID crisis, and we're finding it's not just small and medium-sized businesses that need assistance. So a broad range attacking of this from different levels, different incentives, and frankly there's a lot that is coming out there right now. This is a constantly evolving process, and nobody has the playbook on that. You know, we see a lot of feedback, a lot of commentary happening, and it's important. However, let's make sure that the commentary and feedback that is happening is also constructive. So how can we channel the ideas? By participating in the survey. You're going to find a new link put out. We asked for your ideas. We need this. The Prime Minister has asked for our collective ideas. So just a little preempting my own plug at the end for this new survey. You can't just talk about it. You got to give some feedback. You've got to be involved, because there's no way Grand Bahama is going to really recover the way it should be if we continue to do things the way we always have. It hasn't gotten us anywhere to this point. So we really do have to think out of the box. And there's so many people here that could give us good information. Also, in addition to short-term loans, low-interest loans, a lot of people are looking for ways that they can jumpstart e-commerce. And that was before the real height of COVID, and it's more so the case now. So how can we make it easier for businesses to do a version of e-commerce? And by extension, those that can, how can we look at this point to start the conversation about maybe individualizing the opening up of Grand Bahama again? Obviously, it has to be very careful and obviously directed by health officials, but maybe looking at it not just by segment of essential businesses, but also think about those businesses that may not fall under the typical essential business heading, but they don't need to be, they don't need personal contact to operate. There are fantastic new businesses that are coming out where they're thinking differently, great entrepreneurs that are looking at ordering online, paying online, delivering at your door, whether it's your home or your business. So as we move forward, we're finding that the needs that we hear in terms of concerns of how to meet payroll, what to do about the loss of business, what to do about funding our operations, and how do we live in a post-COVID world of business, because it's not, even when we do open up, it's not going to be the same, and we have to be ready for that. We have to find new ways of doing things. So there's the call out there that says, okay, how do we get this done? How do we get more e-commerce options? And we're going to need help from the government, we're going to need help from the banks, and we're going to need the business community to think outside the box and reimagine their business.
I want to get back into the layoffs and the closure of businesses. What are these companies saying to you they would need to happen in order to save their businesses at this point? Anything in particular?
First and foremost, they need to get back in business. And the longer the lockdowns and curfews persist, the harder it becomes for them to figure out how to resume business. So there's a broad call from all of our survey participants: how do we get back open? Can we be considered? Listen, I don't have to meet my customers. I can take their payment online and I can drop it off. Can I open up? Can we open up if we have this in place? So we're seeing a real call, especially here in Grand Bahama, and I would imagine from other islands that haven't seen cases right. in a number of weeks. Of course, we don't know the metrics behind that. Obviously, health officials are guided by information that we don't know, and we completely respect that, and we think that the crisis has been, I mean, when you consider what it could have been, we are so blessed here in Grand Bahama. Yeah. However, how do we start that conversation, and how can we maybe look at Grand Bahama individually based on what's happening here, and how can, if it's not a general opening up, how can we be strategic about it and touch those businesses that don't have to touch other people? And how can we make sure that the businesses that want to open up can do so safely? So for any business that feels that they're going to be ready to open up soon, and there will be more as we go along, there will be more businesses added to the list. Are you prepared for it? Do you have masks for employees? Do you have safety protocols in place? Because I think the message we have to send here in Grand Bahama is, okay, we can handle this. Goodness knows we can handle disaster, and we can show that you can shop safe here in Grand Bahama. And so how can we are calling on businesses to make sure that you're planning ahead as much as you can, because when we do open up, you want to be able to do so safely and effectively.
Many Grand Bahamians have been saying that they feel as if they are being beaten with Nassau stick. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that term, where the cases in Nassau continue to climb, but here we've gone at least 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks, without any reported cases. Is this a conversation that the Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce is willing to have with the government and to save some of these businesses and to try and stop these layoffs and possible closure of businesses?
Absolutely. We have made certain recommendations, and we will continue to do so, especially as we get more information, because, you know, when you have concrete information that you can work from, it gives a lot of greater justification for things. It is a process that we're working on, and we will continue to work on. We do believe that hopefully as soon as possible and as soon as is safe, that Grand Bahama will be seen as its own area to open up strategically and differently. We're hearing it all the time, and we, first of all, Nassau, please.
Please
follow the rules. I think it's getting better, but for goodness sakes, please. And congratulations to Grand Bahamians that have done a great job, and this has not been easy. Some people don't have homes still to live in. They're trying to get their homes done. The government has allowed some nuances in Grand Bahama that weren't permitted elsewhere. They have allowed construction to continue for vital hurricane repair, and there have been some concessions. So we will continue to advocate for that to be expanded upon as we move forward. Again, it has to be safe, it has to be in a way that makes sense, but nobody wants any business to be closed longer than it has to. So our recommendation is to look at strategically opening those areas as we can, and especially for businesses who can do things differently and safely. Look at Grand Bahama differently than if we continue to post great news and health officials have confidence in that. I know that they're wanting to ramp up testing, and there's so many things that I can't comment on because I just simply don't know it. It's not my field, and nor is it anyone's other than the medical field. But as that happens, please let's look at Grand Bahama individually, and then the flip side of that is businesses have to be ready for that. So get your plans in place. How are you going to reopen? How are you going to process customers? How are you do you have your inventory on hand? Have you been connecting with your customers? There's a lot that I know as a business owner myself that we have we have to look at our business differently to we really have to think about how we can move ahead more efficiently. And so it's been painful, but it's also been really, really helpful for us in our own business and in my mother's own family business. And I'm sure there's no other business, all other businesses would benefit from taking a good hard look and think about doing things more efficiently. As I said, we don't want to go back to the previous COVID Grand Bahama. We don't. We want a Grand Bahama that is poised for real growth, sustainable development, so that we can put this post-Dorian, post-COVID storm period behind us.
Good. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Stay with us. COVID-19 pandemic coming to you live from our studio in Freeport. We'll be back in just a moment.
Good evening, Bahamas. Pastor Sherrod McAlpine here with Freeport Fellowship Center. And on behalf of our senior pastor, the Honorable Frederick A. McAlpine, and our congregation, I want to encourage you with this one scripture, Psalm 125:1. They that trust in the Lord shall be as Mount Zion, which cannot be shaken, but endures forever. Listen, as we walk through this pandemic, I want to remind you and encourage you that our trust is not in the strategies of man. Our trust is not in a governmental system. Our trust is not in a vaccine, though we are grateful for those things. Our trust, our hope, our faith is in the Lord our God. And no matter what comes our way, we will not be moved. And who God keeps is well kept. Listen, Grand Bahama and the Bahamas at large, I want to remind you and encourage you that we are praying for you and with you, and we declare that as Psalm 91 says, no plague shall come nigh your dwelling. Listen, love each other, be kind to one another, look out for one another. Please be safe and God bless.
Health is working to ensure the safety of the Bahamian people. Help us minimize the risk that coronavirus poses to citizens, residents, and visitors by following these 5 easy steps. Step 1. Wet your hands with clean water, apply soap and lather for 20 seconds by rubbing them together. Include the top of your hands between your fingers and under your fingernails. Rinse your hands under clean water, then dry them with a paper towel or air dry them. Remember to wash your hands before and after eating, preparing a meal, changing a diaper, or caring for the sick, and always after using the bathroom, touching money, shaking hands, or taking out the trash. Step 2. Cough and sneeze in your elbow or upper sleeve, not in your hands, not in the air. Or you can cover your nose and mouth with a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Put your used tissue in the trash bin when you're finished. Remember to wash your hands with soap and clean water after you cough or sneeze. Also, remember never to spit on the ground, roads, or in open spaces. Step 3. Ensure that raw meat is properly handled and cooked thoroughly. Step 4. Avoid sharing drinking glasses, eating utensils like spoons and forks, or sharing personal items such as toothbrushes and towels. Germs can live on surfaces we touch, so wipe and disinfect surfaces where germs can live, and keep your surroundings clean. Step 5. Avoid close contact with anyone showing symptoms of respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing. Should you or anyone you know feel that you have been exposed to the coronavirus, contact the surveillance unit of the Ministry of Health immediately. To reach us, call 502-4776, 502-4790, or 502-4737. We want Bahamians and those that live with and visit us to remain safe from the coronavirus. To do this, we need the help of each and every one of you to follow the simple steps we have shared. Let's stay safe, Bahamas. Welcome back. In this COVID-19 environment, the challenge is to stay away from gatherings. While you're advised to stay at home, but for those who have important bills to pay, well, it is a tough decision. There are several companies set up to make the bill paying process much easier. One of them is Canoe, a paying service, a leading digital payment platform. Nicholas Rees joins us live now via Zoom to talk a little bit more about this service that is now available. Thank you so much for tuning in and for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's great to be here with you.
Good afternoon. First of all, let's talk a little bit about the service Canoe offers.
So first of all, we like to let everybody know who we are, and we're a licensed payment institution. So we're a financial institution, we're based in Grand Bahama, regulated by the Central Bank of the Bahamas. We're also a port licensee as well. And what that was, so that in itself distinguishes us and leads into what it is that we do, because we do offer financial services as, similar to a bank, but we work in partnership with Bahamian banks. And we provide a technology platform or user-friendly app that allows you to extend your banking reach and extend your platform and engage and take advantage of incentives and interact in an ecosystem.
So exactly what does this mean? How do people take advantage of this service?
Okay, so 100%, I get your point. And so this is a question we get a lot. And so Canoe is very feature rich, so it's at times it can be overwhelming. So I want to be very clear. For the user, there's a user application. You download it from from your Play Store. It's free to download. There are no monthly service charges. And what you get is you get the ability to store your cash in a mobile wallet. You can store your debit cards in a mobile wallet, and it also segments other payment instruments like gift cards, coupons that you can hold in that wallet as well. Add into that the shopping component that we provide to businesses to display their products in the app. So you can go right into a product store, select the Remy or the lipstick or the bottle of water, and you can buy it, and you can select, I would like delivery or pickup. And that is an infrastructural tool we give to the business. We don't offer delivery, but we offer the business the tools to implement delivery.
Awesome. So,
right? So that's...
Okay, go ahead.
So that is the basic functionality of the ecosystem. Add into that the ability to top up your minutes and pay your bills in a very easy, seamless fashion. And that's all the app is in a nutshell.
And it's so important right now because a lot of persons are looking for convenience and they're not trying to leave home. They're trying to stay safe and avoid a crowd. So what type of bills are you allowed to pay with this Canoe app?
So right now, so Canoe is a brand new company. We just did a soft launch in December. You will see, all of your cable, your electricity bills, your Grand Bahama Port Authority bills. We are turning on services one day at a time. So COVID-19 kind of caught us in the middle of a launch, and so we now had to escalate and turn on these services because we wanted to turn on one service at a time. Right? So we turned on the cash card first. But now we've got this service to deliver. So right now, today, you can pay your bills at an armory company. You can pay tithes at a number of churches. This bill pay feature is available to any business. We have about 400 businesses that we have in queue that are signing up to get turned on. So imagine now you as a business, you're in Inagua. Your banks are leaving you, your banks are closed down, you need to pay for your pallet of flour to come from Asa Pritchard or Milo Butler & Sons. You can use Canoe, log on to your web-based platform, and you can pay Asa Pritchard directly and cheaper than it would to find a bank or write and mail a check.
Wow.
Asa Pritchard can then act on that transaction, send you the goods. You can then turn around, sell those goods to persons in the community that would be purchasing in digital currency, and you can even pay your employees through that same back-end portal. So we've developed a complete closed-loop ecosystem that is built on the backbone of a bank, the Bahamian banks, Bank of Bahamas and Commonwealth Bank, under a regulated umbrella of the central bank, which means our platform is tested, licensed, regulated, and inspected by the central bank. That ensures that your money is safe. And that's the difference with Canoe. We're not a company that has an app. We're a financial institution, a payment institution. We consider ourselves a fintech company.
So
we bridge finance and technology.
Christine Lightbourne-Darville, she is tuning in on our Facebook Live feed, and she says, I gather that this may be similar to PayPal. Is that correct?
So Canoe is similar to PayPal, Cash App, Square, and Amazon rolled into one ecosystem. So yes, we do have the API plugins for your website for you to be able to take the PayPal type of payments. We have the POS service for you to take the Stripe type of payments over the counter. We have the Cash App version where you click on the number and you just send money to your best friend for lunch, to split lunch. That's the Cash App version. And then we have the Amazon, baby Amazon, which is our Canoe Zone, which no other company in the entire world has. Is an interactive social mobile e-commerce site where you can incentivize and engage in your own audience and monetize your customer when they leave your store. So this is how we had a customer, one of our patrons, sold out completely of his inventory over the 24-hour period. Persons were not able to move, but they were able to download the app, go and take advantage of his gift cards, and pre-purchase his product. By Monday, when we came out of the lockdown, he had his funds and he was able to prepare his goods and deliver his hot cross buns that week. And so that is what Canoe is doing for businesses today.
That's amazing. What has been the response from customers?
The response from customers has been tremendous, and it's been overwhelming. We're seeing a tremendous increase, and so we're asking customers to be patient with us as we help them get onboarded. We're trying to make the process as seamless and as effortless as possible. And so we're about to roll out our independent business owner program, where we want to empower individuals in the community to basically run and own their own business, because the service that we provide to businesses is a marketing service. So we need independent business persons who want to say, I want to take 30 businesses under my belt, and I want to advise those businesses on how to market, utilize, and engage their customer in a digital manner. And so that person now has a book of 30 businesses, and they work with them, and they will make commissions, and they will help that business make more money. Our model is we make money when you make money. We don't make money unless you make money.
That's a good motto. Very quickly, can you just tell us, how do people sign up once again?
So you go to the Play Store. This is for users. You go to the Play Store, Apple or Google, and you just type in Canoe, you download it. If you've ever signed up for an email before, it'll be very intuitive. It's free, it's no charge. There are 2 levels to the app. You can choose to level 2 verify if you want. That allows you or empowers you to hold $15,000 in your wallet. Level 1 with no KYC, you can hold up to $500 in your wallet.
Well,
Businesses is a different onboarding process. I apologize. So businesses must come through the website, reach out to one of our sales team, and we'll get you set up, because there's a different suite of products that we provide for those businesses that are completely integrated with the customer app. So we have a complete ecosystem that we provide.
Okay, well, ZEP Senator Francis Wilson says, so glad that this is finally available in the Bahamas. We want to thank you so much for taking the time out and being on our show today.
Thank you.
Well, for the Abaco community, this COVID-19 health crisis comes at a time when the island is trying to recover from monster superstorm Dorian. And as the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season approaches, residents say they are relying on faith to pull them through. In this report, Jamila Mizik talks with the Christian Council leader to find out how churches are coping at this time.
It's been some 8 months since the passage of Hurricane Dorian, and the island of Abaco is still in recovery mode. President of the Abaco Christian Council, Pastor Edgbert Tinker, says as it relates to repairs to churches on the island, the progress has been slow.
There are a few churches that have started to rebuild, and they got help from some of the NGOs here, like the Jehovah's Witnesses Church is already completed and everything, and then there's more churches in Central Abaco, like Soul Saving. They're getting some help, and they're under repair as well.
And with just 1 month left before the start of the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season, Pastor Tinker says there are some concerns.
We're constantly praying that the Lord would only allow the breeze to come our way and not direct it from another hurricane. Abaco cannot take another direction at this time, because we have people still with tarps and no roofs. In fact, it started to rain and thunder last night here, and my house is full of water because I'm still one of those who still have tarps on my roof also. So we're praying that the Lord would be merciful to us
Now, the doors of all churches have been closed since the emergency orders were put in place by the government back in March. However, Pastor Tinker says churches in Abaco are trying to cope with this new reality.
It's been a challenge. It's been a new way of doing things, and a lot of them have reverted to online platforms like Zoom and meeting places like that, and there are churches that are members via those media. And then there are some, like on the Keys, Mount Island, I know for sure. On Abaco, I know for sure there are others with the that the government allow for the churches. And so we are trying our best. Mount Island in particular, every day, 3 p.m., they go to pray for the nation and pray for this upcoming hurricane season, and so on and so forth. So we're trying our best to, get used to this new normal.
He's asking Bahamians to continue to keep both Abaco and Grand Bahama in prayer. Jamila Missick, 7S Network News.
Well, Pastor Sidney McIntosh joins us live. He is the second vice president of the Grand Bahama Christian Council and pastor of Revelation Faith Apostolic. The question is today, how are churches coping during this COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, first of all, I want to say hello to you, Shashina. It's good to be here with you.
Thank you.
Well, we have some mixed emotions as it relates to the churches having services. And there are a few churches, more than less, that are trying to apply themselves and to comply to the regulations which the government has given as relates to coming together and having services. But there's some mixed emotions. Some churches want to have service. Some understood exactly what was happening. So, but overall, we're pretty much trusting God, believing God as we move forward, that this too will pass. But we're just complying and applying ourselves now to what the government has stipulated.
What are your thoughts on churches who are not complying with the government's emergency orders?
Well, personally, I have a concern about that, because it's not just the government, from my understanding, is not saying, okay, churches closed down. Initially, that was something that we came together, we discussed as the Christian Council. We also spoke with the Bahamas Christian Council, and sitting down and talking about it, we came up with it was the best interest for the people and for the country moving forward. I think that the Bible speaks about loving your neighbor. And to love your neighbor, that means that you've got to be cognizant to know that if there's a virus or there is something that is out there that can affect other people and it's evasive, it isn't like you can put your hands on it. So I think in lieu of that, I think that everyone should use wisdom at this time and to be able to not have services with more than what the government is requiring. And those that have a problem with it, I think that I think that's where wisdom comes in, and a little bit of knowledge comes in, and understanding things. Because not everybody has wisdom, and not everybody has knowledge to understand how to apply it, and not just to themselves, but also in care of others. And I think this time, I think it will be very selfish, if I can use that, to maybe kind of be strong, to have a problem with not having services at this time, because I don't think it'll be in much wisdom to do something like that. So I think those who have a problem, I think there's a lack of understanding with the scriptures.
Well, that's an interesting statement, because a lot of leaders have said that they want to continue to have church because of their faith. They believe that they will be protected, and they believe that there's a lack of faith on the part of Christian leaders who do not want to have services at this time.
Right, so true, that's the point. But see, the Bible, quarantine is not something that is foreign as it relates to the Bible. Mm-hmm. This is something that is throughout the Bible as it relates to quarantine. The Bible doesn't use the term quarantine, but it uses either separate yourself or clean or unclean. Mm-hmm. And they had to separate themselves and be out of the camp. So quarantine, and as it relates to sickness and disease, the leprosy, is nothing strange in the Bible. It shouldn't be a problem, because we love our neighbors, and especially something like COVID-19 that is so evasive. It isn't like sometimes you can have a strong or super carrier that is not showing any symptoms, and you put your neighbors and your loved ones and your friends and your community in jeopardy to bring them, and you don't know exactly what's happening. Now, as it relates to faith, I understand your faith, but the Bible speaks about prevention. And the whole thing with the Bible, the whole scenario of the Bible is about prevention. And Jesus died that we could prevent from going to hell. He died that we can prevent from being sick. So prevention is very important. important. So I think it's not just faith, it's also you have to realize that what's happening and the nature of this sickness that is happening. So we as leaders and elders, we have to take the first approach and be an example that others may follow and understand what's the magnitude of this situation.
And the fact of the matter is there are so many ways that you can still get your messages out.
Absolutely.
Even before COVID-19, a lot of church leaders have been taking advantage of the digital platform where they would have brought messages live on Facebook or through whatever social media means. So the message still gets sent to the persons who may need it most. In fact, you may even have a broader reach, you know, through the means of social media. So why do you think it is that some persons are hell-bent, for a lack of a better term, on having church during this time?
Now, I like the question where you say during this time. If you go back to the scriptures, one of the things that we must be mindful of at the same time, Shoshana, is that the Bible does speak about coming together and fellowshipping and forsaking not the semblance of yourselves together in the manner of some do, especially as the day approaches. So this is scriptural. We understand the Bible talks about fellowshipping and coming together. So it's hard and difficult for them, so some folks, not to accept that. But because you use the term this time, especially when we're dealing with the COVID-19 situation, this is a time now, there's an enemy. And this enemy, the Bible talks about this kind come not out but by prayer and by fasting. There are certain ways that you deal with certain things, and you have to combat it. This is one of those things that we have to use the weapon, which is called quarantine. Quarantine is a weapon at this time, and we have to not see it as something that is holding us down, but we have to see it now as a tool, as a weapon that we can use to fight against this enemy. And once we kind of get the concept of that, I think we'll be able to approach it different.
Miriam Stanford says, respecting the laws of the land, it's what we should do.
I agree 110%. Respecting the law of the land. Even Jesus Christ, when he had to pay his taxes, he sent his disciples, go in the fish mouth, got the coin, and paid his taxes. Because we must respect the law of the land. That goes without saying.
There's been an ongoing dialogue now, actually, on social media. And a lot of persons are saying that maybe some of these pastors who are I want to be careful how I put this, but who still want to have these church services, who are advocating for these church services, that it may be more about the money and less about spreading the message to the people.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't want to assume anything or come to a conclusion of why they choose or why they want to have service. But just to say, if they're saying it's about the money, there are other ways. There are other ways you can be able to still be, money can be contributed to your church. If you have apps, you have programs that you could be able to implement in your church. That we still have churches that are still open. The business hours are still open, even according to the government. Churches can still open for business hours between, I think, 8 to 1 or 8 to 2. So you can be able to still have the members come by the church and drop it off because of the situation that we're in. But it's not what you do, it's how you do what you do and find a way. But if it's all about the money, then we have a problem. Because we must be more concerned about our brothers and sisters. We must be concerned about our neighbors. And we must pray and trust God at this time now. And to believe God that when all of this is over, this too will pass. We'll come back and be able to fellowship and have church services and enjoy one another. But at this time now, we have to bear in mind of what we're really dealing with.
The Bahamas Christian Council is now also advocating for the reopening of churches. Talk a little bit about that and how you feel about this.
Oh, well, the information that I've received, yes, we sent a letter forwarded to the government, and I hope I'm okay to say this, but I know that we did get a response. And at this time, the government is saying that they don't think it's a good timing or wisdom for us to come back together and have church as usual. But at this juncture, at this point, I feel, especially in the islands that has no infection, or those that are not, no one is infected by it, or we have no cases, especially the islands, and also to consider Grand Bahama, I think that there should be some opening, because we must bear in mind that the spiritual compass of our country is those that are the Christians, Bible-based people, because according to our Constitution, We are a God-fearing nation. So it's imperative that those that are the church or the people of God, we must take this by the hand and we must be the head. And at this point now, I feel that the churches should be able to come together by allowing the necessary precautions to be in place as relates to sanitizing the church, washing of the hands, mask wearing, whatever we can be able to do. But I think at this time now, we should start to making some headway towards bringing the church together.
So you think it should be like a phased opening, moving from maybe 10 persons gathering to 20 persons, or should it be a phased opening or just reopen the doors?
No, I think there should be a phase, because I think it should be a phase, and as we phase it, we'll be able to better handle situations as we move forward. Because we got to bear in mind there are some elderly folks that is in our churches. There are folks that do have other ailments. So this virus attacks folks that are already in a situation. So I think moving from 10 to 5, based upon the church, based upon the size of the church, we could be, if a church can be able to hold more capacity, if you're able to be 6 feet apart from each other, then I think that we should be able to have service coming into the future moving forward.
Senator Francis Wilson says, I don't think it's a good idea. Some persons aren't following the social distancing guidelines, so churches may be worse, or would be worse, as she puts it.
Okay, now the thing about that is that Grand Bahama and other islands who has no cases at this point, other islands who don't have any cases, I don't see why we would not, I don't see why it would be a problem to have a phase in coming together with churches in those areas. Now, we have Nassau and Bimini right now where these are the hot spots. I think that becomes different. We have to bear in mind that we are archipelago. We're not just one master land. So there should be some consideration of coming together. I don't think, we should penalize everybody when there can be some kind of wisdom. Again, we come back to wisdom. If the church has to display wisdom, which they should, then likewise also the government and everybody else should be able to display wisdom and understand the nature of what's happening. Because at the same time, we don't want to be the ones to actually stagnate the moving forward of the church when you don't necessarily have to do so.
And before we close out today, just give us some words of hope and encouragement as we go through this COVID-19 pandemic.
Sure. One of the things, before I go into that, if it's okay, I brought from the church, this is 2 gift certificates I want to present to you, Shashina, and you can be able to, I don't know how Zedness wants to give it out, but this is 2 gift certificates for Sawyer's Fresh Market, and you can distribute it the way that y'all would like to. We are in a time now where we're in this together. We're in a battle and a war, and we're fighting a spiritual battle, which is attacking our physical body, is attacking our loved ones, our friends, our relatives, children. It's out there. I want to encourage you today that prayer is the key. I want to encourage you today that if we trust God, without a shadow of a doubt, this too is going to pass. We've got to believe that at the end of the day, behind every dark cloud, there's a silver lining. God, Jesus Christ died on the cross for us. He bare our sins, and by his stripes we are healed. We've got to hold on to that word, and that word is going to bring us through. I say to you, my Behavior people, I say to you, to the global family, all of you, let's trust God. Let's believe God. Let's adhere to what the government is saying, at the same time, believe God that God is going to bring us, come back together, that we can fellowship. But at this time now, let's hold one another hand and let's continue to pray. Blessings on you.
I think what I like most about what you would have said through this entire ordeal is follow the laws of the land. Even if you think it should be a phased reopening, when it comes to the opening of the doors of the churches, you still believe that if the government says this, we shall abide by
without a shadow of a doubt.
That's very respectful. Thank you so much for being with us today.
You're so welcome. It's good to be here, Shashina.
As we close out today's COVID-19 pandemic special show, we encourage you to remember social distance, sanitize, and stay at home. Let's stay safe, Bahamas, and let's stay healthy. I'm Shashina Roll Farquharson. Thank you so much for tuning in.